with the scatter pattern, you've got a bit of a blending, I guess, of the growth and the flow pattern here, where you've got the growth of a certain element and how it's flowing across the landscape. So in a scatter pattern, when you look at it on a big scale, you get a clustering of an element within a focal point. So that might be, considered the growth area of that element. And then as it flows or expands away from that point of origin, it gets less and less numerous. So if you look at a woodland system, for example, and here's a stream that's flowing through that woodland system, around the edges of that stream it's going to be more humid, there's going to be an environment there that more favours trees, so you're going to get a clustering of patches of forest next to that stream, and as you move further away from it, they're likely to become fewer and fewer depending on environmental conditions and grazing pressures and different elements within the landscape. But when you look at a pattern like this, it often seems random and it just looks like a bit of a patchwork spread across the landscape. But there's often this form within that scatter where there's a focus or a concentration of an element, and as you move away from that focus, it becomes less and less numerous. Another example might be a lichen. If you have a look at a lichen, there's a point of origin of the growth of that lichen, and as you move away from that point of origin, the lichen becomes less dense and it kind of patterns out and as you get to the edge of that lichen. So the application of the scatter pattern has many examples of that. May be a case where it's regional planning, for example, where you've got a city and you've got towns clustered around that city, and the towns are going to be more numerous the closer to that city, and then as you move further away they will become less numerous. And when you're looking down at that landscape, it will resemble a scatter pattern as you see in nature. So the elements there that you'd use the scatter pattern to replicate and be based upon is that there's some concentration of resources. It might be a city, it might be a river, it might be a population of people, but there's some concentration of resources, and there's a scattering of elements in that landscape that will become less numerous the further away from that concentration of resources you get. And it might be a house, and these might be your trees, your orchard trees, your productive trees within the landscape, and they're more likely to be more numerous closer to the house. And then as you get further away from the house, you would locate fewer of them on your property because they require a bit of an investment of time and energy and maintenance, and they get replaced by other trees which might become more numerous. So if these are your fruit trees, for example, there may be other trees such as timber trees that are starting to become more numerous the further away from the house you get. So there's an interspersed scattering of different trees in the landscape that are organised due to, well, the same feature, the concentration of resources around the house, but they're responding to that differently in how you place them in the landscape. So they become more numerous the further away from the house you go.